So I want to start with what my word of the year is. And I know this can sound so like silly, is choosing a word for the year. Um, but I've been doing this for the last few years, and what I find in choosing a word is that it really helps me navigate what I want to focus on, especially when I'm feeling kind of pulled in different directions, or I'm not sure what my next goal is, or how I want to improve, or like how I want to grow. That word is kind of like my guiding star for the year. So a couple years ago, the first time that I chose a word, it was authenticity, and I really wanted to kind of get into like being my authentic self and like figuring out like what is that. And I think I found that a lot of my authentic pieces came from who I was as a kid, and I think that a lot of millennials are going through this because we've become so nostalgic about the 90s and what we had growing up. And I think that there is an element to like who we were as kids, and how that and how as a child you just kind of naturally gravitated towards certain things, and you just naturally liked certain things just because you liked them, and you didn't have anybody kind of like um telling you what you should or shouldn't like, and or you shouldn't do, or how you shouldn't act or think. You just did. You were just like you were probably the most authentic self when you were a child. And I think that kind of helped me to open up that can of worms, was exploring that authentic piece of myself. And a lot came out of that year. So then last year, my word was lightness. And when I set out with lightness, my idea of lightness was like, how do I live lighter? How do I not carry so much emotional baggage and not take on everybody else's problems? How can I live in a place of peace and calmness and not take everything so seriously, because life is really short. And I just find that I am that kind of person. Like I naturally take on other people's problems, and I feel the weight of them, and I wanted to find a way of letting that go. But what ended up happening was really interesting, because I did find lightness, but in other ways. And it does kind of tie into the authenticity piece of the year before. So in tying in with the lightness, and like I also feel like too, the more authentic we can be, the lighter we can kind of feel, because we're not completely masking who we are and hiding things that we feel like we should be ashamed of, even if it's really relative to our own authentic self and all of those things.